one of the things I struggled with, Justus, my entire life was people pleasing. So much so, I entered terrible relationships. I did all kinds of odd jobs because of it. I entered all kinds of toxic cycles because of it, simply because there's a certain way I wanted people to perceive me. But also this comes from an identity crisis. Do you understand? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So I had no values. Literally, I would be whoever anyone wants me to be. If I met a guy and he was really nice, I would be like, oh my God, so what does this guy like? I would turn into that person's ideal, significant other. The funny thing I discovered is that there are people who benefit from your brokenness. And it's very disheartening to find out that it's actually the people closest to you or the people who you deem as dear to you. So my name is Rebecca Chisache Macheli. I am a Ugandan citizen. I am an author. I am a lived experience storyteller. I am also a creative. Because of recent days, I found myself back in the advertising space, a space I ran away from because I really struggled when I was working in that space. But, just being able to be given the chance to create again, to tell stories again on a corporate level, on a brand level, it's just amazing. I'm also a sobriety coach and the founder of I Have a Life, which is an organization that provides personalized addiction recovery solutions to individuals who are struggling with addiction as well. And that's something that's very close to my heart. And it's taking up a lot of my time because it's something that I've really been brooding on for about 2 years. And I believe 2026 is the year that it's actually going to come to life in its fullness. And I'm really excited to see what that is about. And I think I love stories because God made me a story. And so I'm constantly looking for ways I can communicate my experience or my story, as many people would like to say, in different ways that many people can be able to learn something or pick something from it. As vast as my story is, people have been able to, pick different things. Some people pick out the addiction bit. There are people who pick out the emotional absence or physical absence of parents bit. There are people who pick out the abortions bit. There are people who pick out the substance use disorder bit. There are people who pick out the relationships bit. There are people, you understand? So you never really know who you're going to touch with your experience. You never really know what's going to come out of you sharing that, whichever different parts of you, in whichever space. So plus, I'm a conversationalist. I love talking to people. I love speaking to people. If I'm in a space and people are not talking and not interacting, I feel like I want to just die, just leave the room, So it's glad to see that the space that we are in now, even the digital space especially, that it's being run on storytelling in so many different ways. And of course, a platform like Shared Moments with Justus, just how you've been able to use storytelling to be able to bring around social impact and raise awareness on so many different issues. It's really telling of the importance of our stories, and also just to encourage people out there. There's so many people who are carrying experiences and they're not, their perspective on what has happened to them in life or where they've been through in life is a bit skewed. Maybe because they have not seen somebody or they have not met a model of how best to safely carry that story, to be able to also tell it in a restorative way. There's a way to tell your story. It must be redemptive. It shouldn't come from a victim perspective. I met somebody recently who told me that a victim mindset is like being at a house party. The music has to stop eventually, So it moves from being a victim to actually taking back that power. How can you turn this pain into purpose? And so that's really what I do as a lived experience storyteller, telling people about my experience of 15 years of addiction and just how I was able to rise from that, how I'm able to now, as a lived experience storyteller, inspire those who are struggling and just let them know that there's hope. There's always room for another chance at life. There's always space for, correcting what has been done, that it's not the end, that if you're still here, really, God is not done. My story or my experience is really centered around my struggle with alcohol addiction, and how it later propelled me into all the bad decisions that came into life later. Dropping out of university twice, having 2 life-threatening abortions, not being able to keep a job, a stressful or strenuous relationship with family, which led to my father kicking me out of the house and eventually having to live homeless on the streets of Kampala for 5 years, and it's, as I said, it's a story that encompasses so many things. As much as it starts from way far back, from when I was born, having to grow up to watch my mother deal with alcohol use disorder as well and losing her at a young age, up to the point where I am now. The crux of my story, I think for many, is how one can spring back from whatever they've been through. I'm someone who believes that for some reason there's an agenda of like suffering Olympics in the world. It's like people are looking for who has suffered the most, who has been through the worst, but at the end of the day, it's about redemption. It's about how do we bounce back. It's about how do we build the resilience to do better and be better. That as much as poor choices were made in the past, how do we now, from what we know and what we've learned, now that it did not destroy us, how do we look forward to tomorrow? How do we carry ourselves better? And most importantly, how do we help others live better? I believe that our experiences are given to us for a reason. There's a saying that I really dislike so much, that life is the best teacher. I believe life is the worst teacher, and life is a terrible teacher. I don't think that some people should have to go through some things when there are other people who have gone through them, and there's wisdom to learn from that, And so whenever you find people with stories to tell, see what you can pick from that. What can you understand from what they've gone through that can help you on your journey? Or maybe something that you've been through, how can you also learn from them to be able to turn that into something positive, to something redemptive for other people as well? So there's a question that many people always ask me whenever I'm sharing my story, and it's like clockwork, everywhere you go. And it's like, at what point did you realize that there needed to be a change? And I'm always very honest with my story. The point that I had gotten to with now it wasn't just alcohol use disorder, it was now substance use disorder, because other different substances had now come into the picture. I had become so engrossed in the bondage that I had now fallen in love with it. I could not acknowledge that I had a problem. And so what happened is the lockdown happened. And that was when I was able to be located by my brother to put me in a very tiny room somewhere in a place called Chaliwajala in Kampala. If you don't know where Chaliwajala is far. Like basically, even the shops around that area were not stocked with alcohol or cigarettes. That's how far that place was, And so that was where my redemptive journey began, because I truly believe that my mobility was the enemy to my progress. Being able to move, as long as I could move, even when I was homeless. Being homeless did not stop me from indulging in whatever substances. And so the lockdown was a blessing in disguise for me. At first, I didn't see it that way, but now I do see that there was a plan. This was where, being locked in that room, as I always say, a mind that is accustomed to chaos cannot comprehend clarity. So that was where now I started to feel all the things I was running from the last 15 years, not being able to grieve my mother, seeing myself as I had now clocked 30, and my friends were all married. My family didn't know where I was. I didn't know Tuesday from Thursday from Sunday. There was nothing going on in my life, I was a failure. I was a failed daughter. I was a failed sister, a failed friend. And so these were all things that now I had to feel and confront. And it was really, really painful. And this goes to tell people that the process of healing always starts out terrible. Things have to get worse before they get better. And I think this is why many people tend to relapse in their different capacities, be it with addiction, be it with self-harm, be it with whatever it is. Because when that moment of pain comes, which has to come, where you have to feel all the things that you've been running from, many people do not have the mental fortitude to be able to deal with that. So they would rather fall back to the familiar chaos, And so for me, I had nothing to fall back to because, one, I had no money. Two, the shops around didn't even have alcohol or cigarettes. So that was just me in that room with all the decisions I had made in the last 15 years and having to confront them and having to know that this is the reality before me. And so many emotions came to the surface: shame, condemnation, guilt. But it was in that room that actually I found the anchor and the foundation that still carries me today. That was where my faith journey began. I started my journey with God. I got my personal relationship with the Lord Jesus in that room. And it was just a daily, I want to call it a sacrifice, but for me it was just a daily renewal of my mind. That every time the feelings of condemnation would come, I would always remember what the word of God would tell me. It says that all things work together for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. So that was when I got to understand that it doesn't have to feel good for me to know that it's working for good. And day by day, I had to renew my mind from telling myself that I'm useless, telling myself that I've wasted my life, to telling myself that God has a plan, that there's something that's going to happen from this, as much as I can't see it. That's what faith is about. Faith is believing in the unseen. As much as I don't see it, I know that this is going to work out. As much as I don't see it, I know that there is something else for me. And so that was when my healing journey began. It was very rugged, considering the fact that I was in isolation. My nutrition was terrible because I was literally in a very tiny room. It was literally a mattress, a blanket, 2 pillows, a curtain. And I had no lights. I had no money to pay for lights. So my nutrition was really terrible. My neighbor would give me some food once in a while. So basically the living situation coupled with what I was dealing with in my mind, it was such a fight, dealing with the fact that I didn't say bye to my mother 15 years ago before she died, blaming myself and saying maybe I was the bad child and all of these things. So there was an internal work that had to happen in me. And this comes to talking about the different facets of healing. Healing is meant to be holistic. There's physical healing, there's mental healing, and there's also spiritual healing. The Bible actually talks about a broken spirit who can bear. So a lot of people need healing from inside to be able to deal with whatever it is finding expression outside. Very many people have different experiences. People are dealing with very many things. But one thing that is constant is the mind. Your mind is literally the control center of your life, which is why whenever your mind is in chaos, your life will be in chaos, whether you like it or not. If you see anybody's life in chaos in any way, know that their mind is in chaos, And so for me, it started with, of course, like every other thing, you try to escape. Whenever there's any form of chaos, you will try to escape, which is why people have all these escaping mechanisms: alcohol, drugs, gambling, pornography, all these things. But in that position that I was in, I was not able to run. I was unable to run. And that was when I now had to feel the chaos. There was so much chaos. I can't even put to words a lot of the things that I was feeling in that time. At some point, I remember I actually did get suicidal, but even the suicidal ideation got lost in whatever was happening there, because there were so many emotions. Guilt would show up today, condemnation tomorrow, then shame. Then now you want to kill yourself. But then you remember that, it's the only life you have. Trigger warning, and I'm not trivializing anyone who has lost someone to suicide or whatever. It's not easy to kill yourself. It's not. When you meet someone who is actually considering that, know that there's a physical or an emotional pain that they're going through, that they just need the finality of ending it all to be able to come out of that. But on the other hand, whether you know it or not, subconsciously, the essence of humanity is self-preservation. So this is the reason why when you're crossing the road, you look left, right, left again, so that kada knock you. This is why you eat food, so that you don't, go hungry and pass out. Self-preservation is the essence of humanity. So I battled with that so much. I battled with, I'm tired of this life, no one loves me, there's no plan for me. Then on the other hand, it was like, you think it's easy to kill yourself. At some point, I remember I was suicidal when I was on the streets, and I couldn't do it directly, so I tried to drink myself to death. Epic fail, of course, because there's only an amount of alcohol you can drink if you're really trying to kill yourself. So fast forward, it really took having to make sense of the chaos. The only way that you can deal with chaos is by letting it settle. Any chaotic situation, it doesn't matter how big the storm, eventually it has to settle. You just have to sit still long enough to allow the chaos to settle. And by reason of the lockdown, I was able to do that because there wasn't much for me to do. It was a very tiny room. All I could do was just sit on my mattress all day and cry and cry. If I wasn't sleeping, I was awake and crying. That was literally what my healing process was like, because I had to now feel the pain. I had to comprehend whatever was happening to me. So because I'm a writer and I love journaling, I started to write down all the things that I was feeling. I started to write down all the places that I was convicted about, thinking about how my life had affected family, thinking about how, what my life would have turned out, or maybe what are the things that I can do left with life. And it was in jotting down all those small things that a bigger picture came together, which is now the book of my story, which is called Woman, Fire, Grace. So basically writing that book was getting all the chaos from up here and putting it down. And something that many people don't know is you just need to put a name to what you're feeling. So some days I would really be hurting, and to be honest, I didn't know why I was hurting. But the longer I sat with my tears, I understood that something happened in my childhood and I had numbed it for so many years, but now it had resurfaced in this sobriety. So I wrote it down and I sat with it and I started to expound on that situation. And that's how I started documenting the entire book, right from my childhood to where it is now. So one of the things that really helped me in that situation was acknowledging what was wrong, acknowledging where I had gone wrong, acknowledging what had gone wrong, whether it was my fault or it wasn't, and knowing that it was out of my control. Just that basic acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is the first step to any form of healing. There's a point where I had blamed myself for my mother's addiction. There's a point where I thought that, am I so bad a child that she had to drink that much? I had to acknowledge the fact that there was nothing I could do about what she was going through, that she went through it. She tried to deal with it as much as she could, to the point that God allowed her to live. And I had to apply that same grace towards me, that I did not have to condemn myself for all the bad decisions that I made, that with the acknowledgement that came now, I can now start to live a better life. I really condemned myself. I really thought that I had wasted my entire life. I really thought that I would have done so much better if I had, made so much better decisions. Something else I had to acknowledge was the fact that my father also did the best that he could. There's a time when I resented my father because I asked myself, how can you kick out your own last born daughter from your house, into the streets? Like, which kind of parent does that? But at the end of the day, I understand that many families actually struggle with this because of ignorance or not really knowing what's happening. The easiest way is to remove yourself from that equation. Because this is a man who saw this thing manifesting in his wife. Now it's manifesting in his beloved last-born daughter. He didn't know what to do. And many people are like that in society today. Rather than try to find out what is going on, they'd rather remove themselves from the equation or remove the situation entirely, But I'm very glad that there's a lot of sensitization happening now, especially with families, family therapy, for people who are dealing with loved ones who are dealing with substance use disorder. There's a lot of family therapy and sensitization that is going on. So people are much more informed on what to do and how to handle loved ones who are dealing with addiction. But that's something that I had to acknowledge. He handled it to the best that he could, right? I had to acknowledge basically everything that had happened on the streets. Those 5 years were some of the roughest years. Like some things even didn't make it to the book. And there are times when I'll sit and, many people have this misconception that once you're healed, things just, life just becomes la-di-da. But healing is really just ensuring that what has happened to you does not have any mastery over you. Because I will be seated somewhere, having a beautiful day, and then a flashback, a random night that I'd even forgotten about, something very gory will come to my mind, and I will sit with it. I will sit with it and say, wow, that truly happened, but look where we are now. It was that change of mindset that actually helped. So there were a lot of things, family as well. losing my brother when I was on the streets and not being able to bury him. I had to forgive myself for that because I really beat myself up about that. But at the end of the day, this is actually what healing is about. Healing lies in our response. You know, we can't get a giant eraser and rub out life and what has happened to us. But our healing lies in our response of what it is that we have been through. God has become my rock. In every situation, in whatever happens, God is my foundation, God is my rock. And you know, this is very, especially in the mental health space, this is very difficult to chant to people because you meet all kinds of people. You meet atheists, you meet people who have studied all sorts of, the people tell you I have a theology degree and this church stuff didn't work and blah, 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 blah. And you know, it's just having to explain to people that there's a difference between religion and a relationship with God. Yeah. And for me, what helped me propel forward and what helps me keep standing today is developing a relationship with God and understanding what that looks like. It's the reason as to why I add that part, understanding what it looks like, is because just after the healing journey was not rosy, because even in finding my relationship with God, when I found God in that small room, I tried to look for spaces where I would connect with communities and people. And believe it or not, I landed myself in 2 cults in the space of 1 year. Yeah, it's hard to believe, I know, but we go through these things to learn and to know better. So because I was so hungry for more of God, I did not know how to discern what was God and what was not. So it was not until I went through those experiences of those counterfeit experiences, that now I was able to have the conviction to say, I'm going to study the Word of God for myself and know who God is for myself, so that anything that presents itself other than that, I'll be able to know. And so since then, I've not been able to find myself in any cults. Human beings, Tony Robbins mentioned that there are 6 basic needs that a human being has, and one of them is connection. That's why when you see someone who's an addict, what they're looking for is a connection to something. And so to break an addiction, you have to remove somebody's connection from something to something else. A person doesn't just break off addiction. There has to be something that they are yoked to on this other side. So for me, what that was God. But unfortunately, the connection was corrupted because I did not know what God looked like. And so in this need and in this desperation for, you know, I need to be healed, I need to be saved, I need to be put back again and all of this, that is where the vulnerability came in. And so many of these cults thrive on that. They thrive on ignorance, they thrive on vulnerability. And so it was just coming to a place where I could be able to protect my heart enough to know that God is enough. Yeah? What a lot of these cults present is God and something, Jesus and something, you know? They'll tell you, come to us, we'll give you Jesus and a passport, Jesus and a husband, Jesus and, there's always and one of the biggest drugs today is hope, as I keep saying. But the kind of hope that is being sold by cults is a very false hope. It's a hope in physical things. It's a hope in prosperity. Join us and we'll make you rich. You know, our Jesus is a Jesus of wealth and, you know, and all of this. But yet that is not the foundation of salvation. That is not the reason why Jesus came. Jesus didn't come to die to make people rich. It's nowhere in the Bible. He didn't come to die to give people husbands and wives, you know. And so many of these people have preyed on people's desperation and people's needs, and then endlessly keep promising them that. So it becomes a drug. People become high on that. It's endless hope, endless hope, endless hope. And so it's that need for connection. It's understanding, how do you protect your heart? When the thing about God, when you understand who God is, truly, when you understand who God truly is, you'll understand that God never changes. If God loves you today, he'll love you tomorrow. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's not where people will be manipulating you and they tell you, oh, because you haven't sown a seed of 555, because today is the 5th of May, the 5th day of the 5th month of the year. Do you understand all that manipulation? When you understand that God is literally a rock, he does not change yesterday, today, or tomorrow, your perspective on life changes. And so it becomes very hard to manipulate you. Yeah. And so that's something that I had to learn, taking care of my heart so much that I didn't desire much more than God. And this helped my healing journey because it actually shaped my perspective on life. It showed me that God, first of all, has not designed me to live God has not designed me to live a meaningless life. Because if truly I am created in the image of God, then surely there's a purpose to my life. There's an expression of God that he wants me to express in the world. This is why we are called to be the lights of the world. And so in any situation I am in life, I always ask myself, God, or I'll ask either myself, or if I'm praying, I'll say, what do you want me to express in this situation? As an author, what message do you want churned out through my books? I don't just write books because I can write. You understand? What is meant to be communicated that is going to express God in a certain way? And it doesn't have to be at, I'm calling you to church, I'm calling you to this and this. If it's expressing healing, how will people be able to encounter healing through God, through my book? You know, the funny thing I discovered is that there are people who benefit from your brokenness. And it's very disheartening to find out that it's actually the people closest to you or the people who you deem as dear to you. I was very shocked by some of my family members' reactions to me being sober and me coming out with my story. A lot of my friends distanced from me because if you don't have something in common with people, eventually that relationship is going to crumble. You understand? So I started to find out that a lot of my relationships were built on alcohol and drugs, nocturnal activities. Because now when, of course, people start to see a glimpse of your life on social media, on WhatsApp statuses and all of this, I really didn't have to chase anyone. People just fell off on their own. It's just life. I'm being honest. Whenever you want to level up, just know it's like egos. When egos are soaring, the only other bird they're going to bump into is an ego. There's no bird that soars on the altitude of egos. The only other bird it's going to meet and say hello to is an ego. You can't find a sparrow there. You can't find a seagull. Do you understand? But it's simply naturally by reason of the altitude. So I just had to come to terms with it, first of all. And this helped me because I was healing from people pleasing. One of the things I struggled with, Justus, my entire life was people pleasing. So much so, I entered terrible relationships. I did all kinds of odd jobs because of it. I entered all kinds of toxic cycles because of it, simply because there's a certain way I wanted people to perceive me. But also this comes from an identity crisis. Do you understand? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So I had no values. I would be whoever anyone wants me to be. If I met a guy and he was really nice, I would be like, oh my God, so what does this guy like? I would turn into that person's ideal, significant other. So this was a cycle that went on until that process where after lockdown now, I was able now to start to get into media. I made it onto a radio station. And this was actually now where I started to understand and see that people actually do benefit from your brokenness, But there's a bit of restoration to it, because in the beginning, this is not for vengeful purposes. There are people who carry rejection ministry, which I hate so much. People who say, they didn't believe in us, but God did. That's a very dangerous mindset. It's actually that's a very poor mindset to carry, like you just want to show people, look, I leveled up. You didn't believe in me. Look at what it's such a low level mindset, because the people now who stopped talking to me at the time when I came out as sober, 3-4 years later were now my clients. They now saw that there's an actual freedom that Rebecca has found. I'm also looking for that freedom. People are attracted to freedom. This is the reason as to why people pay thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to listen to Vusi Tembekwayo speak. There's something that he knows about venture capitalism. Do you understand? There's a financial freedom that he has cracked. So people are addicted to freedom. Not really addicted, but they're attracted to it. So I did not, the way my heart was postured was, okay, yes, I'm now healed and I'm now doing better with my life. It's not now to go and show people, look at how heathen you're living. No, it's my life must be a testimony for them to understand that there's a better way that you can do life. And the truth is, fruit speaks. You don't have to talk too much. Don't defend yourself and say, I'm so sorry, I don't talk to you anymore. I tell you this and this. No, let your life speak. Same as family members. Many family members actually gave their life to Christ after I got saved. People who are dealing with addiction. Like, I'm talking about family. This is something that had been going from even before I was born. You understand what I mean? So I like to let it be, just let your life shine. Just let your life shine. Don't talk too much. Just be. Become and be what you've become, and you'll actually see the change. So my father and I had always been close since we were young, but of course the addiction brought in so many tensions and all of this. But and the thing is, it's his personality. He doesn't speak, he speaks when spoken to, and he also has that sense of pride, not bad pride, but this pride that you want. He's not a conversation starter, you understand? So he would, when I started working on radio, I could see he would view my statuses. Now, you know, at that time, and this was so cute, he would view my statuses and then he would call me like once in 2-3 weeks. He'd say, hello. Then he would say, so what are you up to? What's going on in your life? And I knew he knew. But you see, it was just him trying to come out and say, I'm proud of you and I love what you're doing. And eventually he said it with his own mouth. He said, oh, I love what God is doing with your life. But from what I heard from the people at home, he was so excited. He was so excited. To be like, look at Rebecca, look at Rebecca's life, you know? And as much as, even if he didn't say that to me directly, that's okay for me. His heart is settled where he is. Do you understand? And so it wasn't easy at first. There were some difficult conversations that needed to be had. I needed to apologize, you know. He too had to say, I'm sorry, I did not know what to do as a father and this and that. Same as myself, I had to acknowledge and say I was a terrible daughter. You know, I was a terrible daughter, I was a terrible sister. And again, you don't get to decide how your actions affected people. And so many people try to go into making amends. It's actually one of the 12 steps of recovery, making amends. And many people go into the step of making amends with an entitlement mentality. They think that as soon as you walk to a person who maybe you hurt or someone who hurt you, you know, and try to make amends, you expect to be forgiven because now you're sober. You don't get to decide how your actions affected people. So whether you get an apology or not, you do it for the sake of you and moving on, you know. Seek forgiveness from those who you hurt, and also forgive yourself as well. Make amends wherever you need to make amends for the sake of your heart. There are other family members who I had who would put me on their status every day. My sister, she's speaking here, this and that. I actually met a cousin of mine for the first time. Her father and my father are brothers, blood brothers. But he moved to Namibia to live and work there so many years ago. And so I met her for the first time ever in my life on my brother's wedding. And so she met me and she said, we're actually the same age. She met me and she said, oh my God, Rebecca, it's so nice to meet you. My entire life, I've never heard a single good thing about you. Every time she was hearing something from our teenage years, Rebecca is drinking, Rebecca has done this, Rebecca is this. When now it came to the homeless part, everyone, now when I started to meet family members again, those 5 years when I was homeless, everyone, they would ask, how's Rebecca? People would not know. They're like, we don't know. You ask, how's Rebecca? No one knows at the family parties. Yeah. So it's very good to see what God can do with restoration, you know. For some people, and of course there are people who I reached out to, friends. I was convicted to do so, to reach out to them and tell them I know I wasn't a good friend, I was a terrible friend, but I'm starting my journey of recovery. There are some people who I heard from. There are others who acknowledged and said, wow, thank you for saying this. And we're actually friends now. Not really friends, but we're still in touch now. Then there are others who I never heard from ever again. But I didn't allow that to hinder me from moving forward. Why? I was doing it for myself. I wasn't doing it for somebody's validation or affirmation. It was literally just releasing burdens that I was carrying, unnecessary burdens. On my sobriety journey, Justus, believe it or not, I found out I'm not a social person. And it actually scared me because I sat down and I said, maybe is this like a midlife crisis? I rarely had social battery for being anywhere, which was so weird because now I've been thrust into radio space. From radio space, I was thrust into film and all of this. But when people would meet me in real life, they'd be like, this is not the Che we used to see, you know, the Mad Michelle in parties and this and that. I really understood that a lot of what was called my being social was just driven by a need to be in spaces where alcohol was. But me, now, removing me from my house to come to go somewhere, it has to be, just as you have to have gold. You have to come and tell me, Che, I have gold for you here. Come for it. I'm actually not a social person. I'm a conversationalist. I love speaking to people, but I don't love being around people all the time. Even when I have social gatherings, 2 hours max, then my social battery starts beeping. I kid you not. It's so weird. Even work, when I was thrust back into the workspace again, I started having all these tensions with people, but then I started to realize it's because I'm disturbed by being, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just your mind telling you need to recalibrate. Because naturally, as human beings, we are social creatures. It's just, I had been isolated so much that now when I was around people, I felt like they were now intruding. In my healing journey, I was actually scared of people. Because I was like, I might meet someone and then they tell me something that might make me relapse. Or they might introduce me to some kind of thing and then somehow. I was so guarded, yeah? But somehow, slowly, day by day, of course, the best way to deal with a phobia or with anything is to expose yourself, exposure therapy. So I connected to a church community, you know, being around people. And so naturally, the law of habituation, I just started becoming comfortable with people. Even being at work, it started making me comfortable being around people again. I didn't see them as intruders, you know. Yeah. So it's not easy putting yourself back out there. It's not easy. First of all, you'll want to protect this newfound thing that you have so much. You'll want to protect it so much so you'll rob yourself of meeting good people. Yeah, which is why community is encouraged, and one of the reasons why rehabilitation centers are good, because you're put in a space with people on the same journey as you, with as much as it's different experiences, but you're able to share notes and say, okay, I struggled with this, but now I'm able to beat it with this. It's good. Community is very important. For me, as much as I right now, I go where I need to be. I think because of the kind of life I lived, really, life doesn't owe me anything. There's nothing I can ask for life at this point. So I'll only be where I need to be at this point. And for anyone who thinks that maybe how am I going to make new friends? The world has 8 billion people. I have people in the world in my life right now who really God has replaced the ones who left my life, you know. There will always be people out there who share your interests, people who want to do life with you. Yeah, we shouldn't rob people of the opportunity to do life with us, you know. And one thing about being around people and community is that it also gives you the chance to let you know that you're worthy to be loved and connected to. There's so many people who go through dysfunction and go through trauma and they feel like I'm not worthy to be loved. Maybe I'm not worthy to have a connection with other people. And so they start to isolate themselves, and then they even start to have identity labels. There's so many identity labels that have come up which really can be fixed by trauma. There are a lot of people who call themselves introverts. They're not introverts. They're not. Go meet some people. Go outside. Go meet some people. Go to a quiz night. Go meet some people. Have some conversations, you know. I love talking about identity. I love talking about affirmations and labels. Because the world is constantly, every single day we wake up, the world is trying to label you, whether you know this or not. It's trying to. Now the problem comes when you now come in agreement with the label it gives you. I remember when I had come out with my story first, it caught the attention of rehabs and mental health spaces. So when the posters would come out, they would say, hello, we made a poster, please approve and see. And then it would have it came with my photo. Then it came with Rebecca Machelli, recovering alcoholic. I don't like that label. It has its function in the psychology space. It has its function. I don't like that label because I'm not recovering, okay? I'm sober. I've been 5 years clean. I've never relapsed. I'm not saying this from a righteous place. I'm saying it from a place of there's so much work that I have put in so as not to be affiliated with what it is that I have healed from. Many people today have succumbed to these labels. They have given into these labels because, as I said, one of the major needs of humans is connection. We all want to be connected to something. We all want to be identified as something, which is why so many people pursue success, regardless of what that looks like in their mind. Okay? I had to come to a place where I was so grounded in God and who God had called me to be that I rejected any labels and it just kept happening over and over again. So I knew it was something that is prevalent in the addiction recovery and prevention space. Every time I had a poster come, recovering alcoholic, I said, I'm not recovering. I'm actually, instead of recovering alcoholic, put there sobriety coach. Why are you putting there recovering alcoholic? Do you understand? And I think I understand what they're trying to do with, these labels. I've been invited to a rehab before, and I was able to see their routine in the morning when they meet. There are, what are they called? They're like chants that they tell them to do. I didn't use yesterday, I will not use today, I will not use tomorrow. So whenever they converge, they have to chant that before they do anything. And I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to rewire their minds. Yeah. But if somebody leaves a rehabilitation center and goes on to be sober for 20 years, why do they have to be called a recovering alcoholic? Why do they have to carry a label that they were not born with? I don't understand the logic around carrying a label that I was not born with. I may have had a period in my life where I struggled with something, but as soon as I overcome it, I should not have to carry that label with me. There's a way that people's trauma and dysfunction gives them a form of identity. Or they've been through so much that it has stripped them of everything they knew they were, that all they have is what they went through. So I'm very passionate about talking about identity, because at some point I was also tempted to call myself, recovering alcoholic, ex-alcoholic, former alcoholic. It's very tempting to take on that title, because first of all, the world we live in, it's like it's cool to have a mental health disorder now. It's like it's cool to be, people are not even looking for healing or freedom. People are looking to have that thing affirmed over and over again. Look at me, I went through this. Look at me, I went through this. I have a friend who, there's a lady who I met last year. She's now a very good friend of mine. But when she was introducing herself to me, she said, hi, my name is so and so. And she said, and I'm a single mother. And I asked her, why do you call yourself that? No, genuinely. I wanted to hear from her. And I wanted her to hear in her own voice why she uses that. And I asked her, kindly just expound for me why you call yourself a single mother. And she had started her story of how I met this man and then this and this happened. And I said, why don't you call yourself a mother? What is the use of single? What do you want me to do with that information that you're single? What do you want me to do now? Do you want me now to handle you like this? I'm being very honest. Like, what is the use of that title? Do you understand? And yet I know you're very many things. She's a very brilliant woman. She's an AI consultant. She has an AI consultant. Her first way of introducing herself is, I'm a single mother. There's a mindset shift that needs to happen, in your life, to understand that what you went through does not identify who you are, So personally, I will never let anyone call me a recovering alcoholic, even over recovered. There's a way they turn the labels. No, it's either you call me, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I'm a coach. And whatever else I'll do later. But that alcoholic thing, remove it. It's like former prostitute. Why? How do you even walk around with your head high, adding that? Then there's people who just won't let go of, like, you don't know what I've been through. Then they say, you can't handle my depression, my depression. There are people who I'm being honest, they're carrying these around like ornaments, and we're all supposed to marvel at how you carry this thing around like it's some majestic jewel. You understand? There's a lady who I met, and she said, it's like every 3 sentences, she has to say, my PCOS has not let me, my PCOS. And I said, we need to recalibrate our minds in how we see ourselves, because how you see yourself is how you're going to show up to the world. Yeah? And so I choose every day to show up as a light of hope for someone else who's struggling. I don't even want I want them to be, when they see me or when they interact with me, I want them to be so surprised that I even went through what I went through. There's many people who hear my story and they say, but you don't even look like, and I'm like, good. That's what it's supposed to be. You want me to walk around with a big placard like this showing I slept in trenches and I slept, no. You know, that's what healing is about. That's what renewal is about. That's what transformation is about. Transformation is the goal. And it's not that it's perfect or it happens overnight, but it happens with the decisions that we make every day, including affirmations and how we see ourselves. Now I don't know all kinds of coaches. I don't know body positive coach. I don't know. There are so many kinds of coaches, Justus. Do you understand? And I feel like they affirm things instead of helping people overcome them. It's like you want to be congratulated for suffering. You get what I'm trying to say? There's nothing redemptive about it. There's nothing restorative about it. It's that when you walk into a room, you must recognize that I went through this, and everyone must keep it. You understand what I'm trying to say? And I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about my faith journey, is understanding who I am. Understanding that I'm free. Literally, the Bible says, who the Son sets free is free indeed. So I don't need to walk around carrying badges of honor, of bondage. It's even in God's eyes, it's not, imagine in God's eyes, after what he did for you, you're still walking around holding such labels. How do you think he feels? He wants to shine through you, but still you're walking around with badges of brokenness. There's something that has been worked on in me, and it's the opinions of other people. And I'll be very honest, accusation only has power where there's evidence of it. A person can only accuse you for so long. A person can only accuse you for so long because what their testimony is one, but what they're witnessing in a person's life is another. Eventually, the accusation has to die. You understand? Whether you like it or not, your job is not to defend yourself. Your job is to walk out who you are. Walk out the freedom that you have. Eventually, even other people will be like, but something. There were a lot of naysayers when I had come out. So those, I don't even hear them anymore. Actually, many of them are my clients now. They're also looking for freedom. So for me, my own is to be so caught up in who God has called me to be. Be busy, be occupied. Those things are for idle people. You understand? We have work to do. There's a lot of work. You know, addiction is a scourge in our country. There's a part that I have to play in order to be able to, fight that demon that is killing the youth. You understand? And so, one, it's being occupied with purpose. One thing I'm very grateful for is that God restored purpose in my life. I'm very occupied with purpose. I do not care about what other people think. And also, on their part, I don't judge them because that is a projection. Some people project. Some people project when they see freedom. It's because it's what they're craving for. Many people started out like that. I started working with them, and many of them are now on their recovery journeys. So it's also coming from a place of my heart posture is they are actually just projecting because they desire to see in their lives what they see in another person's life. Yeah, usually that's where accusation comes from, And so for constantly, I walk with my eyes facing forward. If anybody has something to say, it helps them. Maybe that's how they sleep at night. Congratulations, But as for me, it's for facing forward. And this is for anybody, people who are, there's just something about what the opinions of others, especially in this age of social media. Oh my goodness, what others think about us, the image that we have to portray, what people have to think about us. That's a yoke that I broke off my neck a very long time ago. And I'm someone who believes in just let fruit speak. The greatest reward for me, there are quite a number, but the greatest reward for me, I think, is seeing other people receive the breakthrough that they needed. Many people are actually trapped in what they're trapped in because they do not have models or they have not seen people who are walking in the freedom from it. And so this is why I say it's very important for us to be bold and courageous with our stories. I have seen mothers call me in the middle of the day and say, I bought my son your book. We have been struggling with him, getting him to rehab, in and out of rehab for about 10 years. Gave him your book, he read it, and he finally came home, surrendered, and said he wants to do rehab for real. It's just that. The thing is, you never know what it is about your story that will touch someone. And it's those parts, those hidden bits that you're so ashamed about. Those hidden bits that they tell you you can never come back from that, you know? Those hidden bits that you think no one else will ever understand. Those are the parts that someone else will read and say, I think something needs to change here. And so, for me, lived experience storytelling is something I have embodied. I have grasped it with everything I have. In whatever space that we need to share these stories, I'll always be there because I've seen what it has done. And that's just one example. There are so many others. There's a lady who called me and asked me to deliver her book. Her 10-year-old son asked for it, to do a book report on it at school. I don't know where he found out about it. I don't know. Maybe he was on the internet somewhere. Maybe he was watching a program on TV. I was invited for one of these teens shows. I don't know. But it touched her so much. She said, instead of going to the bookstore, I want to look for this lady. And she looked for me. Someone gave her my number. And she called me and she said, I just want to thank you because I don't know what it is. My son is 10. She said, I don't know what it is in your story that attracted him. But he asked me for a book and I gave it to her personally. I signed it and I handed it over to her. So there are so many ways that we can impact society when we actually become brave and courageous with our experiences. You might not know how the story will touch someone, but know that there will definitely be an impact. One thing that I always keep in mind, Apostle Joshua Selman said this, is a prayer that he always says to God is, may I never know the extent of my impact. And I think that's something that we, in this world that's constantly telling us about personal branding and, and all of this, and how there's some people who you're going to impact and they'll never even say thank you. There are lives that you'll change and you'll never ever know. I was told my story the episode of my story on shared moments with Justus was aired at a rehab in Githunguri. Who knew? It's a small book that was written in a very tiny room that had no light. Who knew? So for me, it's just, there's power in our stories. Where I had reached in the year 2019, the next step was death. Because by 2019, that was when I did the 4-day drinking spree, when I got the news of my brother's death in the UK. And that's when I got my leg sliced. You have the scar on camera. So the next thing was, as a homeless cripple, the next thing was they were going to inform my family that there was a body in a trench somewhere. Because now literally, the lockdown was a blessing because I had to be immobilized. That's the only way that I would still be here today. Because I was literally walking and drinking myself to death. Either a car was going to knock me or I was going to end up in a situation where maybe a man maybe would have had his way with me and killed me, or something was going to happen if I was not immobilized. That's it. I would not be here. Because by the time I had this incident, my life was already in shambles. By shambles, I mean I literally could feel death around me, actually. By the time the suicide ideas came and by the time I got the news of my brother's death and then having my leg sliced, there was just so much happening at that time. By this time, if my life had not taken a different direction, I don't think I would be here. Just as I would wake up on the balcony of some mall and I wouldn't know if it's Tuesday or it's Thursday or Sunday. It's not until I would maybe walk to some places like some bars, then I see it's this night and I'm like, okay, it's Thursday. Like for me, that's such a blessing. To other people, it's something small. The second thing, and I think the most profound, is to be able to have a roof over my head. There's a certain stability that comes with having a roof over your head. And not stability physically, but even mentally. Being able to rest, being able to make decisions from a calm, cool, and collected place. Not being able to have to survive. What am I going to eat? What am I going to smoke? What am I going to drink? How am I going to live? There's just that stability and that security and that certainty of having a roof over your head. That's, I think, the one that I'm most grateful for. Being able to have a roof over my head. I don't think people understand until you actually experience it. And I'm not talking about I was homeless for 3 days. No, 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 no. I'm talking about someone who has not willingly been able to have a roof over their head for a prolonged period of time. There's no way your life can have any form of sense, if I'm to be honest. And I'm not talking about homeless that I'm crashing at my best friend's house for some time. No. I'm saying homeless whereby Monday you crash and wake up in some random balcony, another time you're waking up in a bar, another time you're waking up. There's something that does to your mind. I'm looking for the right word. It's like when you plant a tree or you plant a plant, and then you're constantly uprooting it. Like you plant it today, tomorrow you uproot it, you put it somewhere else, you plant it. There's something that does to your mental landscape. There's no way your mind cannot be chaotic or your life can't be chaotic, And so there's so much that has happened. There's just so much that has been able to take place just from the place of having just having a roof over your head, just having that security and a sense of safety, and just even being able to be in a place where you can say, even if I don't have everything in the world, that you still have life, That's also something I'm grateful for. I think those are the major three. But majorly, being able to have a roof over my head and life as well. Because there's a time where I questioned life so much. Every day I would wake up, I would ask, okay, so now why am I even alive? Why did I even wake up? There's no formula to sobriety. There's no formula to sobriety. When somebody is in the process of addiction recovery, there are two things they need to consider. The first is, what was the cause of the addiction? Two, what is the motivation for sobriety? If what is motivating you to get sober is anything other than you being a better person, along the way you're going to relapse. Anything other than it being for you, you're going to relapse along the way. If you don't find out the root of what was causing you to drink, because I keep telling people, the bottle, the drugs, and all this are simply physical manifestations of a deeper heart and mind issue. So if you don't have the root of what caused you to start drinking, or what is keeping you drinking, eventually you're going to relapse. Eventually, because if you don't deal with it at the root, there's nothing you're going to achieve. Which is why that work had to happen in me. In the brokenness of thinking that I was flawed, thinking I was the cause of my mother's, drinking, thinking all of this is what was causing me to drink. But it's not until I confronted it that now I actually started seeing myself losing a taste for drinking. It had nothing to do with the fact that I was in lockdown and there was no alcohol present or whatever. The only thing that affected was me running back. But for me to be able to wake up and lose a taste or have no appetite for alcohol was now a new mental infrastructure of there's nothing to be shamed about. There's nothing to run from anymore. There's no one who's accusing you or condemning you anymore. Now start the journey to become a better person. And I was able to do that from a safe place, So for those who are on the journey to recovery, the first step is, I always say acknowledgement is the first step. Acknowledging that you have an issue. There are people who just want to go to rehab to maybe please their family or whatever, without acknowledging they have an issue, Yet the goal is not sobriety. The goal is not sobriety. The goal is wholeness. That's it. The goal is never sobriety, because you can be sober, you're not drinking. Next thing we know, they're telling us you're harming yourself. What's causing that? What is the fragment in your soul or in your heart that's causing that? That's what needs to be addressed. You see, and the mistake that many people make is to try and lead people to sobriety. That's not the goal. Lead people to wholeness, which is why you need to find the root that's making them drink. Because there are people who have gone into rehab and they've become sober, they come out and they become psychopathic murderers. Do you get what I'm trying to say? what you took away was the physical manifestation of the problem. You did not deal with the heart problem. Yeah. So there are some sins that have been made have more weight than others. Others have been accorded much more stigma than others. So, some people would even rather not acknowledge that they have a problem and just, carry on with life. I keep saying many people justify their vices or justify their bad habits simply because the negative effects haven't yet manifested, So I've met a number of people who have never drank in their life, So they and I can't blame them, Good for them. Maybe their parents did everything they could to create an environment where, they never needed to desire alcohol or never needed to be curious about it, which is very good, yeah? But it can tend to create a kind of piety or a self-righteousness whereby you don't understand what another person is going through, And so you'll find them asking questions like, but why didn't the person just stop? Why do you have to drink yourself? And I've seen those comments. I saw them in the comment section of, the last episode that we did. And you can't blame them. They just simply do not know what it means, which is why many times people who have these kinds of experiences are encouraged to share their experiences because they have learned the heart of compassion. You're able to now help another person from a place of compassion and not a place of self-righteousness, saying that, why can't you stop drinking? Why do you keep relapsing? That's not the kind of heart posture you come with. You come with a posture of understanding, of knowing that you too once were in that position. You tried. Many people ask me and said, but didn't you also try and stop drinking? I tried, I think like 150 times. There's no addict who wakes up. When you meet an addict, know that they have gone through a battle in their mind and they've lost. At some point, there's a battle that took place in their mind and they lost. So they don't need any more condemnation. Okay? They don't. If you have nothing nice to say, please move. So I think that's from my perspective, that's what it is. And to be honest, I'm going to be that person who will strive as much as possible to protect my children from addiction. If it means having the right conversations, they will know my story. They will know my story, right? I'm not going to hide it from them. They will know my story, and I will do everything in my power to raise them in a way that they don't have to look to substances in order to cope with life. There's really no pressure to be either like my mom or to not be like my mom, Here's the thing, if you enter a room and you tell someone there's a pink elephant in the room, don't look at the pink elephant. When the person walks in, what are they going to see? A pink elephant. So if I go through life saying, I'm not going to be like mom, I'm not going to do anything like mom, psychologically, like when it comes to how the subconscious works, that's literally what I'm going to be. I'll be a tyrant over my kids if I see even an ounce of like how I used to act around my mom, Like, what's wrong with you? Be free. I'm your friend. What's wrong with you? You get what I'm trying to say? So it's really just leading from a point of, that's actually what healing is about. It's not leading from who you were, what you went through, or who you experienced. It's leading from who God now has made you be. It's leading from the newness of God in you. Yeah. Like that's really just what it is. Like even when it comes to my relationships, I'm not that person who's looking out for traits. Let me see if this man who, he looks like so and so from 2016. He has said the same words. Let me look for. We miss out on so many good things because we're trying to now police our experiences from the trauma of our past. So it's just learning well, first of all, learning well from what you've been through, and also just being present and just let life happen from a healed perspective. So I'm currently a certified sobriety coach, and I have founded an organization called I Have a Life. So what I Have a Life is, primarily it's a digital resource center. So basically it's like a fast response for anybody who is struggling with addiction or has questions about addiction. Let's say it's a family member who's trying to inquire for another family member. So basically what A Have a Life has at the moment, we have consultancy and referral services. We've partnered with different rehabilitation centers around Uganda to be able to have them, on quick call in case somebody needs somebody to be admitted. Then we also have a directory. This directory contains the contacts and the locations of all the rehabilitation centers, licensed rehabilitation centers in Uganda, who are also our partners, who appear on the website. So in case anybody is, in a space and they're looking for a rehabilitation center near them in whatever region, they're able to go on the website and see the directory and be able to contact whichever they can contact. We are also working heavily, primarily on community education. In every space, we are carrying the gospel of sobriety and anti-substance use, especially among the youth. It's a problem in Uganda. It's a problem. We've even moved from alcohol now is not a problem. Okay, it's a problem, but not as much as the different crops of drugs that have cropped up. Now there's something called ice, which is really methamphetamine, but the street name is ice. Crack cocaine is also a very huge problem, and it's worsening because the age brackets that it's seeping through are going lower and lower. We now have people as young as 11 years old who have developed substance use disorder, which really is very saddening because I've seen a parent have to be called to school and hold her 14-year-old daughter in her hands unconscious because she had an overdose. And so this is something that we are actively combating. We are partnering with whoever we can partner to be able to carry this message. Being somebody who is affiliated with arts and entertainment, the direction that we're taking for Have a Life is using music, using film. We're partnering with some people to be able to bring mental health awareness to film, to schools, through drama, through theater, whatever the creative arts can help us with. We are actively doing that. Then the last thing that we are actively working on is something called the Zawadi Fund. We already have one partner who has expressed interest from Canada, and ideally it should be able to roll out by June 2026. The Zawadi Fund, Zawadi is a Swahili word that means gift, and I truly believe that each and every life is a gift, and each and every person deserves a chance at life. So one time I was seated down and I asked, what is the direction we are going to take for a Have a Life? Really, that's going to make it different from what other people are doing. Because personally, as a person, one of my values, I hate sameness. I hate doing what everyone else is doing. And so I said, how can we make a Have a Life different? And so I sat down with a few colleagues and we asked ourselves, truly, as much as addiction is prevalent in Uganda, what is hindering people from getting help? Because rehabilitation centers and facilities have cropped up. So what is keeping people from getting the help that they need? And truly, through research and through a survey that was done, people actually are struggling because rehabilitation services are very expensive and still are for very many people. And very many families break under that because there are people who don't go to rehab once. You have to keep taking them over and over again. So they have to go through different cycles of rehabilitation. And so many people express that their biggest hindrance is the financial support. And so we came up with the Zawadi Fund, which is going to basically sponsor, it's like a scholarship for rehab. So it basically sponsors both rehabilitation and reintegration for people who are struggling with addiction. So that is the one that's actively taking my mind right now and occupying me right now, because I truly want to see people get help that they need. I've met people who want to get help, but either they don't have family to support or they themselves are not able to have a job to help them. So these are people who we are looking for. We are looking at families who really cannot support their loved one, but they really want to see them get help. Their loved one wants to get help. These are the people that we actively want to support, to see them, see through their rehabilitation, recovery, and sobriety journey. So what I'm holding here is my second book titled New Wine, The Broken Soul's Guide to Healing and a Fresh Start with God. And this book was birthed from being able to share my story. And everywhere I shared my story, I was constantly asked one particular question. when I told people to be able to give their experiences to God, they asked me, what does that look like? And so I actively sat down and I prepared this guide to help people navigate what they go through in the healing process. And so it's basically, of course, it has bits of my journey in there, but from a healing perspective of what happened in the healing journey. I noticed that when I wrote Woman Fire Grace, it was 200 pages of my testimony. Simply my story, but not about my healing process. And so in this book, I actually share bits of what it felt like to, actually forgive myself, forgive others, seek forgiveness from others, how to handle triggers and cravings from addiction, how to let go of the past, how to change your perspective on life, how to come up with a purposeful perspective towards what it is that you've been through, and just being able to turn your life around for the better. Basically, the beauty from the ashes. Yeah, so this guide is for anyone who feels they're too broken, or anyone who feels that they've been through so much trauma and so much dysfunction that they're beyond repair. This is a guide that you can actually read and remind you that, God can turn your sorrow into joy, can turn your weakness into strength, and your despair into purpose. So it's not only for those who have been struggling with addiction or with substances. It's for basically anybody who, has been through any sort of pain, anyone who feels that they're broken or fragmented, and just how they can, rise and see how those fragmented bits in their soul can be put together again. This book is available in Nairobi at Nuria store, and also in Uganda at Mahiri Books.